Hi, my name is Jeffrey Purvis. I work for Performance Roofing Associates. We are the manufacturer's representative for Firestone Building Products. We cover the state of Pennsylvania, the state of New Jersey, and the state of Delaware. The topic for today, we are going to discuss TPO membranes in the low slope commercial roofing market. Before we talk about TPO, I think we need to have an understanding of what TPO is and what EPDM is. Those are the two primary roof membranes that are utilized by Arco Design Build on all of their roofing projects. There's two different categories of single ply membranes. The first category would be called a thermoset, which is what EPDM is. It's a membrane that permanently hardens or is vulcanized and cures when subjected to heat. Once it's subjected to that heat and it's cured, it'll stay in a cured state. A thermoplastic is a membrane that can soften when heated and then it will re-harden, but it can also be re-softened again at a future date. And that is the difference between a thermoset, which is cured, and a thermoplastic that can be melted and then hardened and then remelted. Thermoplastic membrane types. It's important to understand that TPO membranes represent over 50% of the roofing market today. But there are some other product categories that are considered thermoplastics that you need to be aware of. There's a PVC product and there's PVC blends. PVC products are a combination of polyvinyl chloride and a liquid plasticizer. And then blends, they have a combination of a PVC and another polymer. For topics for today, we're going to discuss thermoplastic olefin, which is what the TPO stands for. It's a combination of polypropylene and ethylene propylene. The TPO roof membrane, the first thing that you need to know about TPO roof membrane is that there are three different options for colors. There's white, which is the most popular color. There is tan, which is used infrequently, but it has been used. And then gray, which is also somewhat popular in the Northeast in the colder climates. The available sheet widths are really dependent on what you're planning on doing with the whether you're doing a mechanically attached roof or whether you're going to do a fully adhered roof. We have 5-foot sheets, we have 6-foot 2-inch sheets, 8-foot sheets. Those sheet sizes are typically done mechanically attached because you have wind load requirements, so your sheet sizes have to vary depending on how you attach that TPO, whether you do the induction welding or whether you do it in the seam. We also have 10-foot sheets by 100, 10-foot sheets by 200, and 12-foot sheets by 200 or 12-foot sheets by 100. Those particular sheet sizes tend to be done with a fully adhered roof system. They want to go with the widest sheet so they have the less seams. So your smaller panels are going to be used for mechanically attached. The 5-foot sheet is typically used around the roof perimeter when you have, like I talked to you about, the extra fastening that we do with the insulation fasteners and plates. At the insulation on a fully adhered system, you still have to have the same type of protection from wind because the perimeter generates stronger wind load requirements. So what they typically do on a TPO system is they'll use half sheets. So if they're going to mechanically attach an 8 or a 10-foot sheet in the field of the roof, the perimeter will get 5-foot sheets. And that gives you better uplift because you're spacing out your wind loads with a smaller panel size, which allows for better wind uplift results. TPO membrane advantages. White color offers aesthetic appeal and it's excellent heat reflectance. You saw that we just talked about the different color options. The most popular product color for TPO is white. And that's mainly due to its reflectivity. It'll take the radiant heat from the sun and it'll reflect it. So it kind of keeps the roof system cool. It's also LEED certified for reflectivity. So if you're trying to build your building according to LEED, you can get a point for reflectivity by the white color because it will reflect and meet the Energy Star requirement for reflectivity. The other important factor about TPO is when we discuss thermoset versus a thermoplastic, understand that thermoplastics, they are welded, so they melt and then they re-harden. All the seams on TPO are welded seams. There's no material seam cost. It's very lightweight, and there's a wide variety of systems available that we'll talk about later on in the presentation. Reinforced membranes also have had a very good track record of being products that perform in the marketplace. Some of the challenges with TPO membranes that we have to address, especially in the Northeast climates, it's very difficult to apply in cold weather because if you notice the TPO sheets, as compared to EPDM, they're very stiff and they're a little bit boardier. When it's in a 20-degree area, it's even going to be less flexible. So we do have some challenges with TPO in the winter months as the temperatures get colder. Some of the hidden things that people don't realize about TPO is compared to an EPDM membrane, it's very slippery, especially if you get morning dew on the roof. You got to be very careful when you walk on that roof, because it can be very slippery, and it also has a potential to move snow and ice. So when you're designing a building, you want to really take into consideration, if you're going to use a TPO roof membrane, you need to make sure you're designing the roof where you're not typically going to use gutter edge, because you can get snow and ice slide right off the roof and probably will take out your gutters in one big swoop. So, because it is slippery. So keep that in mind. If you're going to do TPO, you probably want to do internal drains or maybe scuppers where you have some parapet walls. So you want to make sure your tilt wall is high enough in order to compensate if you do get some snow sliding and it builds up at the perimeter, it doesn't go flying over your roof. So you got to be careful with that. Cold weather installation requirements are very similar than they would be for EPDM. If you're going to do a fully adhered type system, you're going to have to keep all the adhesives in a warm 60 to 80 degrees typically is what they want to see. We call it a hot box or a storage trailer, and only bring those adhesives up basically when you're getting ready to adhere the roof. Other than that, you obviously want the roof to be dry when you're doing it, so the contractor needs to make sure that the deck and everything is dry before they're installing their insulations. But other than that, it's actually can be done in the wintertime. You just have to follow the winter instructions by the roofing manufacturer to make sure that it works. The other important factor with TPO is depending on whether you're doing single layer versus double layer insulation, whether you're putting an air barrier or vapor barrier on the deck, be careful when you're designing roofs, mechanically attached versus fully adhered. You can get some residual condensation underneath the roof membrane, and mechanically attached roofs with single layer insulation tend to be more suspect to that. But you can also get air leakage at your perimeters. You can get air leakage at your penetrations. We sometimes recommend a froth pack and make the perimeter and the penetrations sealed with foam so that you get minimize the amount of airflow that's coming up through hitting that membrane, because TPO roof membranes that are mechanically attached will flutter. The other important thing in northern climates, in colder climate areas, you got to be very careful with snow loads. White membranes in the Northeast are subject to, we get sometimes 1 foot to 3 feet of snow. One of the things that we noticed that is consequential to white roofs, they tend not to melt the snow off the roof. So your snow loads tend to stay on in the wintertime a lot longer than they would if it was done with a black EPDM roof or a black or a darker surface roof. So you want to take that into consideration. Colder temperatures make flashing penetrations difficult. Remember, as the product is stored on the roof, it's 20 to 30 degrees, 40 degrees outside. It's very stiff. It's very difficult to get TPO membranes in those conditions to form around roof curbs and pipe boots penetrations. It's a little bit more boardy and stiff than a EPDM membrane would be. And another important factor when you're doing mechanically attached roofs, please understand that when you're mechanically attaching a roof, that membrane will expand and contract, and it's loose. It doesn't look like a fully adhered roof. People make a lot of comparisons, and then owners are really shocked at all the wrinkles and how the roof looks after it's installed, and they say, why does my roof look so wrinkled? Well, as the temperatures go down, the product will constrict, and you'll notice that it's very tight. And then as the sun comes up and it starts to heat up the membrane, you'll see the membrane will want to relax. So if it was installed in the wintertime and it was extremely tight, and now all of a sudden it's coming out and it's getting warmer out in the spring, those sheets want to flex and they want to relax. So you'll end up with a little bit more membrane than you thought you had, and it shows up as wrinkles. So the product is not adhered, so it will expand and contract with temperature and with sun exposure and not sun exposure. So please keep that in mind. It won't look like a fully adhered roof. It's going to look like a mechanically attached roof, and it will move and it will expand and contract. TPO cold weather restrictions, what most general manufacturers would publish and what is enforced by Arco Design on their projects, because they want their projects to be successful. The membrane, when it's first laid out, must be allowed to relax. You have to let the membrane relax so that you let the sun hit it so that it relaxes as much as it can, so it does this expansion. And then at that point in time, your adhesives are kept between 60 and 80 degrees if you're doing it fully adhered. In colder weather months with TPO, you need to do welds, test welds, because the temperature at 7, 8, 9 in the mornings might be different than the temperature at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And with that temperature, they need to adjust the equipment to be able to weld at a certain speed and at a certain temperature. As the temperatures rise, the weld could be different. You could end up burning the membrane if you're not being careful from when you're welding it in the morning till you're welding it in the afternoon. So we do require test welds, and most major manufacturers do. And outside temperatures should be 20 degrees and rising when you're installing that system.